Hey everybody, it's Ryan from Ryviews.com. I got a request to do a Gemcraft tips and tricks for people who have not bought the Magician's Pouch. So I'm going to try to have this video kind of encompass all of my previous different areas of tips, but it's going to be focused on how to navigate the game without the Magician's Pouch. I started a quick local save here so we can kind of highlight things. I haven't really gotten very far in it. I've only unlocked the first 3 levels. But this should show off a few of the things you're missing without the Magician's Pouch. Quick note, I do want to mention, I definitely think it's worthwhile. It's pretty cheap, and it really definitely enhances the game. On the flip side, I definitely also think that it's kind of a low blow because I really can't imagine being able to beat the game without buying it. Where I'm at right now in my main save, which I'll go back to in a few minutes, I don't really think I could get there without using the Orblets, which is a Magician's Pack only, or without using Endurance. I just don't think it'd be possible. So if people have other thoughts, please let me know. You might be better at playing Gemcraft than I am, but certainly at my skill level, I don't think it's possible without the actual Magician's Pouch. So, looking at this right away, this is the battle trait I always use. I always use Orblets, it makes it much easier. So, that's obviously going to be a huge hit later on. I just don't really know how to get around that. For your skills, you can't get Chain Hit, which I definitely used early in the game before I unlocked other gem skills. But once I unlocked other ones, I think I mentioned in my previous videos, I use Armor Tearing a lot and I use Poison a lot. And just recently, since I made that video, I unlocked Poolbound, and I'm using that too. So honestly, I don't find Chain Hit that useful, but it is definitely useful early in the game. So this will definitely slow down your progression. The Talisman is the same. You don't lose or gain anything from that other than the Shadow Cores that you get from buying the Magician's Pouch. But otherwise, Talisman works like normal. Lots of the things about in-game work like normal. You can increase drop rate. You can increase difficulty, I think. I actually have not gotten far enough to know if you can increase to the next difficulty setting on this level, but I'm assuming you can. And of course, Endurance is locked without the Magician's Pouch. So that definitely will slow things down. But one nice thing that happened in this game that I don't think happened in Labyrinth, all the achievements only apply to non-endurance matches. And in fact, now I'm positive that wasn't the case in Labyrinth because there were some where you had to play to wave 100 or whatever, and you could get that in endurance. So in this method, at least the achievements are all achievable. For the base game without buying the Magician's Pouch. That's a very nice feature, but obviously, as I already mentioned, it's kind of frustrating that it's not really particularly easy to beat the game otherwise. So loading up my main save here, let's go back in here and look around. So you could see I've gotten pretty far in the game, but I had to grind a few. I've gone back to probably the first 15 or so levels and played through on higher difficulty settings, you can see here, on a few of them, and just playing in Endurance with Orblets on lots of them to get 30, 40, 50 XP on some maps. That wouldn't be possible without Endurance, obviously, so that will make grinding very difficult. Basically, what I would recommend if you don't have a Magician's Pouch, to play through each match the best you can, just play through it without having to go back and grind a whole lot, just play through linearly until you can't beat a map. If you're having difficulty, maybe try shuffling around the skills a few times. I would probably recommend trying to decide which of the ones you're really useful. Definitely, I would recommend sticking to my rule of 3 for the skills. I think it's very useful to kind of get that second tier as efficiently as possible. I still think these two you always want to max out, regardless of where you're reshuffling. I can't imagine a situation where you wouldn't need these in a match. But almost everything else, you could try different strategies as far as, maybe you'll skip using traps, or maybe you won't level this up and still use traps, but just you won't really worry about the specials. Because it's only a 30% multiplier. Depending on where you want to put your skills, you might want to tone that down. For the most part, I'd say the strategy is very much the same for in-match. You just can't go to Endurance and you can't grind, so you're usually going to be playing on an uneven battlefield as far as someone who has the pouch versus doesn't. I'd also probably recommend Once you do start grinding, really utilize calling waves early and dropping gems onto waves. I think it's a huge advantage that you're able to create more monsters, especially on a fairly easy match where you could drop any kind of gem. On here are multiple gems. And automatically you get more monsters, which means more XP and more mana. And if you're able to deal with it, usually it pays off pretty well. I think there is later on, if you drop too many gems on a wave to call them early, there is a diminishing return of investment, just because they'll have so much armor you can't really destroy them anymore. But for the most part, calling waves early and raging waves, or whatever it's called, is very useful for racking up good XP in a match. Past that, I really don't know what else to tell you. Like I said before, I really think it'd be difficult to advance very far in the game without the Magician's Pouch. I just don't see how, without endurance, without orblets, I don't think I could have gotten this far. I think I would have gotten stuck, which would have been the same situation I was in for Gemcraft Chapter 0, just because there wasn't enough grinding opportunities. As far as the battle traits I would use, this one, I think I mentioned this last match, but so there are a few here that don't really hurt you too much. This Swarmling trait really does nothing to you unless you use the spells, okay? It does slow, freeze, curse, those spells, okay? And I guess the slowing gem. So, if you don't use slow, and if you don't use those two skills, then it really does nothing to you. Okay, the Swarmlings don't have extra XP, don't have extra armor. That's a great one to use to get a good XP multiplier. This too, at least a few levels up on this, it really won't hurt you that much to give you mana every 25 seconds, every 10 seconds. Once you get higher, it gets a little more ridiculous. So it gets up to 100 seconds. That's pretty insane. And it would really hurt you early on, certainly, and probably also in endgame. But in the middle of the match, if you're able to manage your mana well, it really wouldn't matter that much. So that's a good one to maybe load up at least a few on. See, the banishment is also sometimes, I would say, it's just like orblets, where if you're able to keep them away from your gem, it's fantastic. Once they start hitting your gem, you are completely screwed immediately. So this is probably a good one if you're able to control the match pretty well. And later on, obviously, without orblets, you probably need to get more levels than I have right now to get where I am, so it would take longer. But once you advance far enough in the game, you could probably ramp this up and not really worry a whole lot. Certainly with replaying old levels, where you can be pretty sure that you're not going to have them reach the tower, I really think it's a good idea to level this one up just because it's safe. Then nothing bad happens until you actually start banishing monsters. Same thing with this. Obviously it hurts you right away. You're making faster gemstones, wave stones. But honestly, I think, especially in the low levels, it really won't hurt you that much. I mentioned this in the last video, but if you call them early, it's the same as kind of, setting this one and getting, the base multiplier increase. So I don't really see that being particularly difficult if you're replaying an old match. Playing a new match, I really wouldn't recommend it, probably. And these two traits I still never touch. Making giants more difficult, unless you're playing a really early match without giants, because obviously that would be fantastic. You automatically add waves of giants with this, but if you're able to deal with everything else just fine, the giants won't cause you that much trouble. But combining this with other battle traits could be potentially bad, because those giants will probably need to be cycled a few times before you can kill them, depending on how difficult you make them. And beacons in general just really screw me over. I've never used this trait still to this day, and I don't plan to. So, I guess my summary for not getting the Magician's Pouch is play through the entire way as long as you can, and then grind efficiently. Call waves early, enrage waves, try to find a good balance so you don't really screw yourself over too early, but otherwise you just have to be really careful, and it'll take lots of grinding. The other alternative would be just to play the game until you find it no longer fun anymore, and then you just leave. I enjoy this game a lot, but I've gotten the Magician's Pouch and I'm a huge Gemcraft fan. So if you're just kind of a casual fan and you don't want to spend your money, I would probably not recommend playing through to the end of the game, because I don't really think it would be so frustrating it would just be tearing your hair out. So that was my video for people who did not want to buy the Magician's Pouch. I hope it was useful. Thanks everybody, I will see you next time. Visit www.ryviews.com for more content. Bye.